Hey everyone. So with the opening of the gyms and people getting outside for summer, I've had a few patients try to pull the lowest lever. The easiest lever, the lowest hanging fruit is to cut back on calories. And it's admirable when you cut back on calories and you lose weight. That's good. With me, if I'm losing too much fat but also losing too much muscle, that's not good. If I'm losing fat and gaining muscle, that's positive. Now, some of my patients come in at a body mass index high, meaning like 30. So sometimes it's very difficult to figure out, am I losing fat and gaining muscle, or am I just losing fat because of relative size? You can get on a scale, you can get on an impedance monitor and figure out body fat percentage. But there is something called a DEXA scan. DEXA scan, there's one place I know of in Illinois, near my office in Bartlett. It's Wheaton, Illinois, Live Lean RX. And I'll put a link down below, but I'm going to show you what I did as far as the DEXA scan. DEXA scans, D-E-X-A, it's typically what we do to call somebody osteopenic or osteoporotic. But the new formulations and digital computers that are associated with those things can actually determine fat analysis, muscle composition left and right. It's really cool that you can use data nowadays to help you figure out direction. Again, I can kind of figure that out. I've been bodybuilding since I was 18. I hold 2 titles, so I've kind of watched the evolution of the data. Back then, we didn't have any data. You just ate a lot of fish, eat a lot of steak, and then exercise a ton. And then hopefully you'll see the muscles grow and the fat or waistline shrink. Sometimes markers like blood tests will tell you if you're in the right direction. DEXA scans will tell you if you're in the right direction. A dunk tank, bod pod, even fat calipers are decent enough if you use the same person and use the same points to determine before and after the change. The objective is after change, if you haven't seen any changes, whether it's the metrics that you measure or the blood tests that you get or the digital information that you achieve, then you have to change your recipe. If you change your recipe, then hopefully you'll be able to see some kind of lifestyle change that gives you a result. So last thing I want to do is have somebody invest 12 months and then they do the tests again. The most discouraging thing is if you get to the 12-month mark and nothing has happened, then you don't even want to participate anymore. So I think it's important to chunk it down, do it in small breaks, see that there is a change, whether it's measurements or if it's those fancy things that we get, just to empower you that you're in the right direction and continue with the investment. I'm going to show you what I did with my DEXA scan. Bottom line is, I'll tell you, when it comes to exercise, I think it's important to manipulate nutrition, but you can't negate resistance. Cardiovascular fitness is fine, but typically cardiovascular fitness helps you with lowering blood pressure, lowering heart rate, and you will burn calories and stay crave free because of the next run that you have or the next swim or the next bike. But I really believe that you have to throw resistance there somewhere. So whether you do it in the form of Pilates or body weight exercises or you do some iron, I can find one of these places in most states I go to just to get a quick exercise routine out. So it's important that you invest in that resistance exercise as well. So if you are doing well with your cardio and your nutrition, as long as you're not losing muscle, that's fair. If you're losing muscle in order to lose fat, the end result might be you're weaker or you bring on an injury easier. So I would say that think of muscle as a reservoir for extra glucose and extra cholesterol. You avoid obesity, you avoid high cholesterol, and you avoid diabetes. I do love resistance because of the way I was born and the way I grew up in the bodybuilding, but I think there's a nice combination. Now, I just took a bunch of guys up to 14,000 feet twice in Colorado, and the young guys kind of surpassed me, led the group, but I was able to keep up. And at 59 going on 60, I think that's pretty admirable. But I still have my cardiovascular fitness, and I never give it up. But I'll always have a combination of both, depending on the time of year, depending on the competitions I'm in. But bottom line is you have to have something of a summit. You have to have a goal to keep you honest and to keep you accountable. Exercising for a year and then remeasuring is discouraging and very hard because something else gets in the way. If you chunk it down into 3-month blocks, I think 3-month blocks, whether you do appetite suppressants, whether you have a registered dietitian, whether you use hormones, testosterone, herbals, bottom line is that 3-month blocks, you should be able to see something. If you can't fine tune by the middle or end of a season, 3 to 6 months, then you might be doing something wrong. And I have a bunch of guys in the office that come in and they say that they're exercising. I inquire what kind of exercise, and it's usually the stuff they learned in college, which is fine. But if you're dealing with a knee arthritis now, or a torn labrum, or a rotator cuff that's impinged, sometimes those old school exercises, even Pilates, might not be the right form of exercises for you. So if you do have an injury, take care of the injury first, secure the injury, reverse the injury, and then you can do everything else. Regional exercises, cardio, anything you want. You don't have to be plant-based. I think there's benefits to it. You don't have to be a carnivore. I think there's benefits to that too. You don't have to do HIIT training, high intensity interval training. You don't have to do yoga. But I think there's ways to vacillate or throttle between all of those to have them serve you. And if you're not sure, then you have to hire somebody that will know. If you want to learn on your own, like a lot of my millennials do, that's fair, but it's going to take you a long time, even if you're really good at YouTube searching, to research, try on, modify, and adapt. If you have somebody that's gone through the gauntlet and trained a lot of people or taken care of a lot of patients, I think you can compress the time frame of your searching.
So we use this board as a guide to try to inspire people. About 40% of our people that come in that get tested literally are not on the board. What we have is green, gray, yellow, and kind of a darker gray. This is where we inspire people to be. As an example, myself, I'm 56 years of age. I want to be between 20 and 26% body fat. Everything else below the green is cosmetic. I want my abs to come out. I want to look good with my shirt off. I'm in a bodybuilding competition, whatever, a performance athlete. This is where they inspire to be. This is what we call ideal, reducing your risk of stroke, heart attack, diabetes, making sure that your body composition is not negatively affecting your health. Over in the yellow, we have people that need a little work, maybe 4-6 weeks out to optimal. In gray, we have people that might be 12, 14, 16 weeks out to optimal. And then we have people that are off the board, generally 40% of the population that come in, that we try to motivate to get to the board. So what we do is we take ultimately their body fat percentage, we look at a goal and we set for them something that's realistic, something that might be 1 to 1.25, 1.5 pounds a week of fat loss. We have them come back in 12 weeks. We give them some idea of nutrition and physical activity, and then we try to get them to move down the board and then maintain this area 12 months out of the year, not 1 month out of here and then the rest of the year off the board, like people do with their New Year's resolution. We like them to live and play here. I'm 6 years away from retirement, and I'm staying in about right here. I'm inspired to get to here so I can bounce around here a little bit.
The average Joe and Jane will usually crank out time for work and retirement, and then usually end up over here. We have a lot of patients out there that are BMIs of 30 with about 3 different diseases and medicines to match the diseases. And then by the time 65 rolls around, Medicare time, great, but then you have all these diseases and it's almost impossible to hit that BMI, that perfect BMI, because you're just so inundated with or overwhelmed with disease and suffering. And then it becomes a mountain of work to try to get down to that. Or testosterone's gone, or estrogen's gone.
A discussion on hormones is critical. We get a lot of gentlemen that come in here that might have weighed around 200 pounds out of college, 185, 200 pounds, and they come back and they're still 185, 200 pounds. The difference is 20 pounds more fat and 20 pounds less lean mass, and that's because over time their testosterone level has gone down, and therefore you can't maintain that lean mass that you normally had when you were younger. So we always encourage people anywhere above 40, 42, even younger people, we say you should at least get your blood work done so that you know your baseline testosterone, free testosterone, your estradiol, men and women have both, and know what those ratios are, so if you start to get negatively affected later in life, that you know what you might want to adjust to.
What a segue, because I'm going to be the next video after this, I'll be talking about testosterone. I just had mine. It wasn't great, but I'll be fixing it soon. And obviously my BMI I'm still working on, and that's why we'll be doing this. Can you tell us what exactly I'll be experiencing here? Is there any electricity or heat or radiation that I have to be worrying about?
Sure. So a DEXA scan, which is dual X-ray absorptiometry, it actually is sending an X-ray, and it's able to pick up how much percentage of bone you have, bone mineral density, how much fat you have, subcutaneous and visceral. It'll also tell us how much lean mass you have, lean mass being all your muscles and your organs. So this is critically important to be able to devise a really good plan to improve your body composition. If someone has a plenty of lean mass on their body and a lot of fat, they may consider really heavily looking at nutrition and cardio exercise. But someone who has a lot of fat and low lean mass, they really need to start thinking about weight-bearing exercises before they think about too much cardio. Because if all they did was cardio, went to the Orange Theory Fitnesses of the world, or went cycling or running like crazy, essentially if they started reducing all of their fat, they would become very thin individuals. And the goal is to really become fit. And so in having more lean mass, you're also going to boost your metabolic rate.
My cardio folks, my walkers, I keep on talking about how it's important to add a hit of resistance. The problem I've run into is that my guys are very comfortable with resistance. I think from high school onward, we're used to holding iron. But I've found that in talking to women about resistance, it's a bit intimidating, because if you ever go to an iron gym and you get in front of the mirrors, or you go next to the dumbbell rack, there's grunting, there's F-bombs, there's tiny t-shirts, and it's a little bit intimidating if you're not as big as those guys. And for a woman, I can only imagine it's not the kind of atmosphere. It's cool to learn, especially if you're a beginner. So I wouldn't want to hang out there. At 58, 59, I get tired of listening to that stuff anyway, especially the guys that are just talking really loud. So I tend to go towards the machine. So in trying to get some of my cardio folks to engage that, it's tough. It's a tough sell. But it's important to have that metabolic flexibility. And if you just do cardio, you'll have great heart rate. You'll have a vascularity that does this all the time, and that's cool for blood pressure and heart rate. But we will not be able to burn. You'll not be able to use that muscle as a sink for glucose or get rid of LDL. So I love the fact that you mentioned that, because it is very important, not only later on, but if we wait until we turn 60 and then you invest, it's going to be much harder unless we dive into testosterone, estrogen, and we can do that, but it'd still be an uphill climb. And there's always a personalized plan that we can do, but this is a great metric to start out with, in addition to the functional stuff that we're going to be doing.
Finally, we have your densometry. So this square right here where the mouse is where you fall. And this is the expected trend of what's typical for a male. So age-wise, you are in good, as long as you're in the green. All right, so your total mass, you have gone down from 147 to 143.2. With that, if we look at your lean mass first, 118.6 to 123.4. And then your fat count has gone down from 22.5 to 13.9.
From May 26 till now, certainly the waistline has decreased. I'm now down to a tight 30 to a loose 29, which I haven't hit since college. And then the parameters that you'll see here, essentially all the curves go down.
So looking at your composition, you look at your arm, your right arm and left arm are balanced at 8.6 pounds of lean mass. From before, you've gone up for your right arm from 8.3 to 8.6. And your left arm, 8.3 to 8.6. So you've had an equal gain also. If
you are trying to get symmetry, this will calculate exactly how much symmetry you have to do to balance out left and right, which sometimes if you eyeball it in the mirror, it's not accurate.
Your right leg, you're at 20.5 pounds of lean mass. You've gone up from 18.4. And your left leg is at 19.1. which has gone up or gone down, unfortunately, from 19.5 to 19.1.
Left leg gone down. Okay, got to work on left.
Which is your belly button region, the typical belly fat you think of. You've gone up in lean mass from 7.7 to 8.1 and gone down in fat from 1.5 to 0.6.
The ultimate that most of my clients want to know about is fat percentage.
Yes. So if we look at your total, you were 15.3 in May.
15.3 in May, and then that's percent, right?
Yes, and you're down to 9.7.
9.7.
Finally, looking at the core scan, down from 0.25 pounds of visceral fat to 0.2.
Visceral fat is that extra fat in the omentum that turns into a hormone creator. It can actually secrete estrogen, give you man boobs. And for women, it can also secrete estrogen and make the periods irregular. So this is why visceral fat, or the tummy fat, is really important to get rid of. Right over there is the visceral fat, the red. That's inflammation. So if we can decrease that without necessarily decreasing the subcutaneous fat, which is, it's always nice to get rid of the fat under the skin of the arms and the legs and the thighs, but visceral fat is equated to heart disease and cardiovascular heart disease or atherosclerotic risk factors. So that's what we have to work on. Excellent. Just eyeballing it compared to when I was in my teens, I'm at 5%, but it's okay. As long as we have comparison from before and comparison afterward, we have a decreasing slope. So that's cool. Sometimes we'll transition between DEXA scanning, bod pod, fat calipers, but I think bottom line is that we have a trend downward, which is the valuable for our measurements.